sitting. Because I'm doing it through my phone, I can't really see you. I'm doing some classes from home and I'm doing it through a Mac, which is easier because I can have you up on the screen if you want to be. But this one, I'm on my phone, so I can't really see you. But so basically that means, as always, that you have to just listen to your body. If anything doesn't feel right, you can back off and maybe stand in Tadasana or come down to child pose, or just lie down in constructive rest, which is knees bent, feet on the floor, and just take a few breaths and then rejoin when you're ready. But you're all used to working with me, so I trust that you will all work with your body and listen to your body. So coming over now, and we'll start. So hopefully you've all got yoga blocks or bricks, or a book as well is useful. So we're going to start by coming to sitting, and we're going to sit on something that is the equivalent of this. A book, a hardback book is good, and you take a seat. You can bring your legs into a wide stride. You can draw your buttock flesh out and back. And you can rest your hands on your thighs. Now take support if you need support. So hopefully you've got a blanket there or a towel. So if your knees are lifted, then give yourself some support. Sometimes people like a little bit of support because there's a feeling of being pulled forward. So pop your blankets underneath your shins as you need to, and then resting your hands, once you've adjusted your buttock flesh out and back, on your thighs, you may close your eyes and take a few breaths to settle. So the breath is, like our little sense of home in our own being. And even though we may sort of be feeling that we're perhaps being pulled a little away from our center by current events, we always have our breath. We're always able to come back to the breath, and via the breath, come back to the heart. So as you come back to the breath and come back to the heart, you come to rest, you come to settle, you come to just be. So that's all that's needed in this moment, is to just be. Allowing your forehead to soften and your jaw to release, and your facial muscles to relax, and your shoulders to relax. Notice if they want to creep up into a lift, and just come back to letting them go, feeling the shoulder blades sliding down your back. Now, as we give our attention to the breath, we're not just simply watching the breath, but we are immersing ourselves in the flow of the breath. The breath is coming and going with ease. And we drop into that ease. Like we're just gently bobbing up and down on water. Perhaps feeling a soft breeze, how we may give ourselves to really feeling that. We don't simply watch the soft breeze when we attune ourselves into a light breeze against our face, but we give ourselves to it, we feel it, we immerse ourselves in it, and we enjoy it. So we can do the same with the breath as the breath flows in and out of the body. Give yourself to the breath like a soft breeze on your cheek. Give yourself to its flow like you're bobbing up and down on water. Okay, we're going to bring our hands to the heart now. So you can place your hands against the heart center, palms together. Without overly pressing the hands together, just feeling that contact between the hands, feeling the contact of the hands against your breastbone, and feeling the transfer of heat, of warmth between the hands and the chest. So we can feel that warmth penetrating deep into the heart center. We give ourselves to that. Now we're going to take a movement with our arms, which is going to be, as we inhale, we're going to take the arms out in a wide circle, and as we exhale, we're going to bring the hands together and we're going to draw the hands back down to the heart center. And we're going to continue this movement for a few rounds. Inhaling your arms up, reaching up, feeling free to move into it as you need to. And exhaling the hands back down to the heart center. And then just finding that flow, finding that rhythm. Allowing any pause in your breath to be mirrored by a pause in the movement. And then when you next bring your hands back down to the heart center, you allow your shoulders to release. You can let your elbows drop, so watch out for keeping them lifted. We're going to just relax into this. We're going to release our hands down to our thighs. We're going to take another breath here. And then from here, we're going to bring ourselves out of our seated posture. We're going to bring ourselves to lying down. Now, hopefully you all have a belt. So it doesn't have to be a yoga belt. It can be a scarf. It can be a dressing gown belt. It can be an old tie or something. So just a strap of some kind. And we're going to come out of our seated posture and we're going to lay ourselves down. Okay, so you may take a little bit of support underneath your head if you feel you need it with a cushion, a folded towel or blanket, or you can have your head directly on the floor. Have your belt nearby so you have it ready to hand, and then we'll bring ourselves down and place the soles of our feet on the floor, head to the floor, and we'll take our arms out fairly wide to start with, so you can have your elbows positioned a little higher along the floor than your shoulders. And then have your hands out a little wider than the elbows. Lift and extend your pelvis away, and you may move a little, tucking the shoulder blades deeper into the back, freeing up this space around the neck and the shoulders, and placing your feet, excuse me, a little further away from you. So you've got a little bit of space there. You've got a little bit of space behind the knees. Okay, you've got a little bit of space here at the front groin area. So we don't feel too, if we bring our feet in close, we feel a little bit held, a little bit tight. So we want to feel nice and open and spacious. And then here we'll just breathe. So you may close your eyes. Again, finding your breath. And we're going to move the body a little. So we're just going to let the knees move a little from side to side. So a windscreen wiper type action with the legs as they move from side to side. Allowing your breath to flow with this movement. So we can feel as the knees drop down to one side, we get a stretch through the back of the body on the opposite side. So as the knees drop to the right, we can feel the left side of the back being just gently teased out, and vice versa. So feel into that. You can feel into the massaging action across your buttocks as you move your legs back and forth too. So you may even want to pause into an area. If you feel a little tight area, perhaps in the buttocks, you might want to pause there and let your weight drop down through. So just keep playing into that for a couple more breaths, a couple more movements. And then coming into the center, lifting up your pelvis, extending it towards your feet so you can place it back down, bringing your knees in towards your chest, and then give your knees a hug and let yourself roll a little across your back here so you can feel, again, it's that gentle massaging action of the body against the floor. And keep orientating yourself to your breath so you can feel that the breath infuses the body, infuses the movement, infuses the practice, and infuses your perception. So for the duration of this time together that we have here now, I really want you to feel into the breath. Keep bringing yourself back to your center, and notice if you do start to get pulled by the mind, you just guide yourself gently back, maybe with a deeper breath or two, a slower, steadier breath. Okay, now we're going to raise both legs up towards the ceiling. And you can bring your arms above your head. If you've got the space to extend your arms out completely, you may. Or you can hold your elbows. You can walk your pelvis out away a little. And then we're going to feel into a little swaying. Now, keeping the legs together, letting your legs sway from left to right. Now you will roll across your pelvis, your buttocks will lift up from the floor in turn. Now there's a limited range of movement that we have here of our legs in the air, because if we go too far, then what will happen is our legs will want to drop down like so. So I want you to play to the edge of that movement so you can start to feel the support through the abdominal region as the legs sway from side to side. Now, don't push it too far, because what may happen is that you start to feel a little tense around the neck. So just check in that you can stay soft around the neck, soft in the breath. So they don't have to move too far at all. Relaxed in your facial muscles. And then come back into the center. Just give your feet a little bit of movement. So you can point and stretch the toes and the heels with the feet. You might move them alternately, or they may point and stretch together. You can just feel into whatever feels right there. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up our belt or strap. Now, hopefully you have a belt or strap that's long enough to bring around the feet and take hold of with your arms straight. So we keep our arms straight and our shoulder blades in contact with the floor. Okay, so we don't start to close across the upper chest. If we bend our elbows, we tend to get this sort of hunching forwards action. So take hold of either side of the belt and pause here, breathe here. Maybe take some deeper breaths. So, how has your breath been between your yoga practice? Between the times that you might have come to your mat or to your meditation cushion. Maybe some of you have been doing some regular practice. Maybe it's last Monday that some of you practiced. So just take a moment, don't think about it, but just a brief reflection. Have you allowed yourself to breathe fully as you need it? Have you allowed yourself to give attention and awareness to your breath? And can you do that now? So I meant to bring a passage from the Upanishads about the breath, which I read in my class this morning, but I forgot to bring it, I'm afraid. But it starts with the breath being greater than hope. And it ends with, it basically says that the breath is various things. The breath is mother, father, sister, brother, all of these things. And it ends with the breath is Brahmana. Now, what it means by that, Brahmana is a Vedantic term, which means the sort of all-encompassing nature of being, of consciousness, the underlying field of awareness. So as we tune into our breath here, this source of prana, of energy, of life force, this source of life for us, we can feel, perhaps we can feel into that. It is greater than hope. It is connected to everything. Okay, now we're going to keep our right leg raised and we're going to just slip out the left foot from our belt. Now you might need to perhaps wiggle your fingers, loosen your grip on your belt, so make sure you're not overly holding it too tightly. And then I'd like you to extend your left leg away from you. That's it, breathe. Slowly extend that leg out. You've got a good grip on your belt without making the fingers tight, so you can hold that leg up with ease. And you are extending your left leg out slowly to the floor. So as the leg lowers down, we can feel that it's being held by a little contraction through the belly. This is called eccentric contraction. It's a form of contraction that allows us to slowly release the muscle into extension. And then the leg comes down to the floor. We can reach into the sole of the foot. We can breathe. We can draw the other leg perhaps further over if there is space in the back of the leg, if we can feel some release through the back of the leg. So we might move the leg back and forth a little to start to feel around the periphery of that stretch. So there's a point at which we can hold the belt and the legs further away from us perhaps, and it's easy, it's comfortable, there's not so much strong sensation there. But then we can start to draw the leg towards us, and then we can start to pick up that extension through the back of the leg, that call to awareness within the hamstring muscles. And you can play again with the edges of that. So we want to start to move the legs so we can start to feel into that stretch. This is probably really important for us all at the moment, as you know, we're not really going out so much, most people, and probably walking less and sitting more perhaps. So it's going to be, you know, very easy for us to get tight in this area. So, you know, play around the edges of that stretch. Don't be static in your place. So if you meet the stretch, you don't have to get to the stretch and hold it and, you know, sort of bear the stretch, but you explore the stretch. So there might be a little movement that you bring in here. There might be a little swaying of the leg from side to side, a drawing of the leg in towards you. Whatever works, whatever helps you to start to feel into that, but feel into the sensation as not something that is happening to you, but something that you can absorb your awareness into. Okay, we're going to bend up the other leg and we're going to slip the foot inside the belt so we can remove the right foot from the belt, and then again holding the belt. Maybe you need to release your belt for a moment, give your fingers a bit of movement if it's got a little bit tight in the gripping there. You know, maybe you've got a nice fleecy dressing gown belt, so you're not gripping as tightly as with one of these yoga belts. So you can then slowly, again, release the right leg down to the floor. We're keeping the right leg in extension. We're breathing. We're taking this movement nice and slowly. So if any of you have already brought that leg to the floor, maybe just pick it up again a little and then continue that slow movement. And keep breathing through that movement. So your attention stays with the breath, stays with the movement, it stays in presence. And then eventually your leg will come down to the floor. This may inspire a deeper breath when you get here. So take that deeper breath. You need that deeper breath. And again, we're playing into this extension through this raised leg. You may be drawing your leg in a little closer towards you. You may be allowing the leg to move further away from you. You can play into that, just feeling into that movement, feeling into a little sense of flow. So, if your movement feels a little mechanical, then, maybe just take a pause. Find your breath, relax your facial muscles, and then pick up the movement again in, a relaxed manner. And let your breath flow with the movement as it needs to. So at any point you need to take a deeper breath or a slower, extended breath, then take it. Okay, well done. Now let's bend up the right leg and place the foot to the floor. Let's release our belt from the left foot and place that foot to the floor. Just place your hands on your belly for a few moments. Let everything settle. You can extend your legs out if you prefer. So maybe you want to bring your legs to the floor, or you can keep your feet to the floor. And just take a few moments again to find the breath here. Okay, now we're going to bring our right leg back up. We're going to place the belt around the ball of the foot. We're going to keep our left foot on the floor. Now you can take hold of your belt. So you're again extending your arm to hold the belt, extending the leg, taking your left arm out to the side. And actually, as you take the left arm out to the side, so if you've already done that, back up, bring the arm back in, just cross your arm in front of the body for a moment so you can lift the shoulder away from the floor. And then we're going to extend that arm out and slowly roll the shoulder to the floor, roll the arm to the floor, roll the wrist and hand to the floor. And then again, when you're ready, we're going to start to take the right leg out to the right side. So we're opening the leg out, we're breathing. Now, as you take that leg out, you might find that you naturally want to lean the left leg out towards the left a little to counterbalance that so you don't roll too quickly to the side. And then there's a point at which you can roll back in then, and you can allow the leg, it doesn't have to come all the way down to the floor, but you can allow the left buttock to lift away from the floor if it needs to, as the right leg extends out, and you can breathe. Allow your facial muscles to relax completely. Okay, let's roll that leg back in. Bring the left arm in. You can remove your belt. You can place your foot to the floor. Just place your hands on your belly and again take a slower, steadier breath here before we come to the other side. So really be with that breath. Okay, you may raise up your other leg. Left leg, holding the belt, giving yourselves as much length on your belt as you need here. So you can keep the arm straight. You're going to take hold of the belt with just the left hand. And again, we'll cross the right arm in front of the body, over in front of the chest. So we can lift that right shoulder off the floor. And then I want you to roll the shoulder blade to the floor, roll the shoulder to the floor, roll the upper arm, elbow, forearm, wrist, hand. And then again, with that leg being pulled in, so you can find the edge of that stretch, we're then going to extend the left leg out towards the left. Now, you can, again, counterbalance it a little with the right knee moving out to the side. And that will slow down the descent of the leg. Otherwise, it tends to drop down too quickly. And then there's a point at which you can no longer move the leg. Then you may allow that right leg to roll back in a little. Your right buttock may lift up off the floor, and you can allow the leg to keep descending. It may come to the floor. It may be lifted quite high. It doesn't really matter where you come to with the leg. But what matters is that you are occupying the entire space and experience of your body. So just check in, are you occupying the entire space and experience in the whole of your body now? Can you feel all parts of the body? Even those parts of the body that aren't being particularly taxed by the pose, but they're still participating. We can't separate any part of the body from any other part of the body. Okay, let's bring that leg back into the center. And we'll release the leg and place the foot to the floor. Bring our hands to the belly. You might want to lift up your pelvis and do a little tuck under so you extend it away from you. And then let's take some breaths and feel the breath into the lower back. Feel the breath into the back of the thighs. Feel the breath into the back of the knees. Feel the breath into the front groin area. Let your facial muscles relax completely. Okay, now we're going to roll ourselves onto our side to just slowly come up from the side. So just walk your hands in to bring yourselves up. And when we've brought ourselves up, we're going to bring ourselves into Sukhasana. So the familiar Sukhasana. And what a lovely pose it is. Once we get the support right, of course. So we're looking for the knees and ankles to align with each other. We're going to draw the buttock flesh out and back. And then we might sit on a lift. It might be a block or a book or a blanket. And if you're raising up your seat, which you need to if you're collapsed in the posture, so if you feel the body is sort of folding forwards like this, then you need to raise up your seat so you can feel spacious and light around the circumference of the waist. And then from there, you may Support your shins if you need to. So if the knees are lifted, give yourself some support and just bring your hands onto your thighs. Now we're going to feel into a natural rising up through the midline of the body. So we might perhaps sway into it, we might turn into it, we may move into it, whatever we need to do. And we can start to feel a light rising up through the midline of the body, through the center of the body. Letting the shoulders release. And what we're going to do here is we're going to move ourselves into a forward fold. So you may slowly perhaps start to come forwards, bringing your fingertips to the floor, perhaps using that contact with your fingertips to bring some lift and length through the front of the body. And then feel into the body as you move. Feel into the breath. So not only is the breath Brahmana, as we meet in the verse I mentioned, but the body is. Our awareness is. Everything is. So what we want to do is to move through the sensory experience of being. We use the senses, we're not trying to reject any element of our being, but we want to move through these to sort of realize our underlying essence. What is it that lies beneath the experience of the body, beneath the experience of the breath, beneath the experience of the mind, beneath the experience of the emotions? How, in a yoga practice, what we're doing is it's simply a practice of how we can find what lies beneath by moving through the senses, by moving through the body, by moving through the breath. So as you continue, perhaps hinging forward, you may come to a point where the body no longer wants to hinge without really rounding into it. And then you pause there, you just stay on your fingertips. You can stay fairly high, or you may come much deeper as you breathe into your hips, as you breathe into the space across the lower back. And then perhaps you may come, if you've come down low, so in other words, you're starting to make some contact with your rib cage and your thighs, then you may release the head if that feels appropriate. Now, the reality of moving into this with, absolute care and attention and total integration is, for me, a slow process. I can move down, I can come down, I could bring my head down to the floor, but I would be skipping over several stages if I did that. So that release towards the floor, we want it to feel like a totally natural release towards the floor, like it just comes from a letting go rather than a trying to get somewhere or achieve something. It comes from a surrender into the posture, a slow, steady release. Of course, anytime you need to, you can come up from the pose. If it's a little too tight on the lower back or twingy, you come up higher. You focus on length through the body rather than the forward fold element of it. You find space between the pubis and the navel and the navel and the breastbone. You find breath. Okay, wherever you have come to now, just bring yourselves up slowly. Allow a little settling, so there may be some sensation there in the lower back because it's a surprisingly deep stretch. But just trust that it will return to an equilibrium. Our yoga practice is constantly moving through a process of what's called shrishti, creation, sthiti, maintenance, and samhara, dissolution. So we create movement, we move through, there may be a period where we're held in the posture, and then we dissolve it back to where it came from. And most of the time, we don't have to be that person who is dissolving the pose. It will dissolve by itself. The sensation in the lower back will dissolve by itself. Okay, now we're going to release the cross of our legs. We're going to give them a little extension out in front of us, give the legs a little bit of movement, and then we're going to come onto our hands and knees. So you can come ready for everyone's favorite pose, downward facing dog pose. So come onto your hands and knees, have your wrists a little further forwards than your shoulders, your fingers are spread, and take padding under your knees if you need to, because we're going to just stay here for a little while before we come up. We're going to feel into a little movement, and that movement can be any movement. It might be a little sway of the hips, a little movement back towards a child pose, a movement forwards, even moving far enough forwards that you can drop your pelvis forwards. So you can just play between moving back and forth. And then when you're ready, when you're starting to feel a really good contact through the hands, so the leaning forwards can be very useful to establish that. You tuck your toes under with your feet towards hip width apart. You keep that good contact with the hands, and then you lift yourself up. So getting this lift up through the sitting bones is really assisted by lifting the heels. Okay, so lifting the heels frees up the hamstrings on the back of the thighs. It allows the pelvis to tilt more easily. And then you can allow this drawing back of the top of the thighs towards the space behind you. The heels may then begin a descent. But you know, it's just incidental. We might notice that they're descending. We're not trying to descend them. We're deepening our hands into the floor, and we're reaching up through the arms, opening the armpits. We're lengthening up through the body. The top of the thighs are drawing back. We're breathing. We're perhaps playing. We're swaying. You may even move the legs by lifting a leg, raising it up, bending a knee, straightening a leg, just moving through however feels right here and now. Okay, now we're going to look forwards, and we're going to take a big step forward. So let's just step the left foot forwards, and then we'll step the right foot forwards too. So take a big step, bend your knees as much as you need to. So your fingertips are on the floor. Oh, I've got a little moth going across my mat. You won't be able to see that on the film, and it wants to come to my toes. So look out for any little creatures on your mat. Spread your toes. Sorry, I'm going to have to remove this moth because I'm going to tread on it otherwise. Okay, doesn't want to move. Okay, so our feet are close in towards each other. Sorry about that. We can bend the knees as much as we need to find this release in the lower back, some release in the hamstrings, and breathe. Now, it might be that you're able to bring the legs towards extension, and that's fine. And it's fine to do that if you feel comfortable in the lower back. If there's any sort of dullness there or aching that, you know, it's not really releasing or letting go, then bend your knees into it. Now I'm keeping my chest lifted here by pressing my fingertips into the floor to establish some length through the front of the body before I fold any further. So I want that fold to really come from the hips. I don't want it to start coming from grasping and my spine rounding into it. So I want to find the release through the back of the legs, to find the tilt of the pelvis. And then my body may follow that and I might start to release. But as with that forward fold we did in Sukhasana a moment ago, you know, the reality of releasing into this posture, you know, it might be a 10-minute reality of really releasing into it. It's super slow and steady so you can feel every little micro stage of the pose. Okay, we're going to bring ourselves up, so you may need to bend your knees to do this, so, you know, to get the hamstrings working. Bring your arms up in a wide circle, press into your feet, come all the way up. You can raise your arms up above your head and you can reach up into the hands, and you might move the hands, move the arms so you can play into it. Now there may again be some residue of sensation in the lower back. So just trust that that's going to release. We'll take our arms down by our side, so bring them down slowly and let the shoulders release. Let your forehead soften, let your jaw release, a little light tone in the belly and lift in the chest. Okay, now bring your hands to your heart center. We're going to move the arms, and we'll move the arms in a wide circle behind us. So you, as you inhale, you can raise your left arm up, and then you can extend the arm behind you, bending your right knee into this so you can turn the body to bring the arm behind you. And then as you press firmly into the right foot, you return your hand to your chest. And then the same on the other side. So you may lift as you inhale, and as you exhale, your arm reaches behind you, and then it returns back to the center. So just continue this at your own pace. Of course, you know, it should be at your own pace. You're at home, I can't see you, so you may be tuning into my pace perhaps, but it should feel natural. It should feel that your breath flows with this. Okay, we're going to do one more round on each side. And then bringing your hands to your heart. Again, letting everything settle. Now, from here, so make sure you've got that space behind you, we're going to step our right foot back. So take a big step with that right foot. Now, you can bring your hands down onto your hips for a bit of stability, and you can look down at your feet. So looking where your front heel is and your back heel, and you want a little bit of space across the width of the mat between your front heel and your back heel. So this enables you to bring the right hip forwards, okay? And then we're looking towards, if we can, I'll turn around so it's easier, to align our hips equally, okay? So if our legs cross over each other like this, then it's really hard to get this back hip forwards. But if we've got that front foot wider, then we've got much more movement in our hips here to come forwards, okay? And you might lift up your back heel a few times and just extend into that back heel, and then lowering it down. And we're going to raise our arms up above our head. We're going to come into Virabhadrasana number 1. So warrior number 1 pose. So let's inhale as we really lift up through the body. And as you exhale, bend your front knee, keeping a lift from the back foot up through the back leg, a little light buoyancy within the pelvic floor, a little light tone in the belly, a lift in the chest, and sinking yourself down. That's it, breathing, feeling into it, moving into it as you need to. Your forehead is soft, your jaw is released, you're breathing and giving yourself to this posture. So Virabhadrasana number 1 can be very strong. You come out of it when you need to, but you know, just because you're at home, don't come out of it sooner than you would in a yoga class. Okay, so think I'm here watching you. Stay for another breath or two. Okay, well done. Inhaling, coming up. You can bring your arms down and place your hands onto your hips. You can lift up your back heel. That way you can just step your foot forwards, ready for the other side. So just take a breath or two here. Release your hands, Tadasana. Find the breath in the body, giving yourself completely. And then again, you can place your hands on your hips for stability to step back, and we're going to step the left foot back. So take that big step back. Take your front foot across your mat. So again, hopefully you can all still hear me. If you can't hear me, unmute and let me know. Take that step back, take your foot across your mat. That's it. So you've got the space, you're turning. That's it, breathing. And then you might lift up the back heel again and just stretch into it. That's it, extend into it. Deep breaths. Now we're going to raise our arms up above our head. Take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, bend your front knee, reach through the front leg, a little light tone in the belly, a lift in the chest, extension through the arms. That's it, give yourself here. Enjoy the breath. Your forehead is soft, your jaw is released, you can move into it as we always do in our yoga postures when we need to. but we're not coming out any sooner than you would if you were here practicing with me with the Tree of Life. Maybe sometimes when you practice at home, you don't stay in your postures as long as you do when you're in a class. That's often sometimes the reason people come to a yoga class. But, you know, see if you can give yourself to it in the same way. That's it, deep breath. Okay, we're not going to come up, we're going to come down. So lift up your back heel so that you bring that little internal rotation to the back leg. Bring your arms down. Place your hands to the floor. Hands are shoulder width apart. You're going to step that front foot back and you're going to step back into downward facing dog. And you're going to breathe here and you're going to play into it again as you need to. Extending through the pose, breathing. And then slowly, via plank pose, so take a little lean forwards, bringing your shoulders above your wrists, making that straight line through the upper body, through the legs, breathing. Obviously bringing your knees down to the floor if you need to. Deep breaths, bringing a little movement into it if you need to. And then slowly bring your knees down. Slowly come back, taking support as you need to between buttocks and heels underneath the ankles. I know some of you need that support, so take it. And then rest your hands there in your lap, drop your shoulders. Sit in space. So closing your eyes because, you know, I think you're probably all in a very familiar space wherever you are at home. So closing our eyes just so we don't get too involved in that. Again, we're not shutting it out, but what we're doing is, you know, switching in on the light of awareness internally. We're going to that which is most familiar, and that's the center of our being. Sometimes we get a little lost from it, but then when we go in there, it's always that sense of returning home, always. It's a little sense of, here I am. And a little sense of, here I belong. Okay, we're going to extend our legs out in front of us. We're going to bring ourselves to sit on a block, a book, a folded blanket. We just want to raise up our seat a little for this. We're going to come into a twist. So Marichasana number 3, this posture is called. It's named after a sage. So when you come onto your lift, make sure you don't sit too far back on your lift. So you want your buttocks to be supported, a little bit of the buttock crease on there. And you draw your buttock flesh out and back to allow this lift up through the upper body. And then we're going to draw back the legs. So it's helpful as you're looking at your screen to draw back the leg that's closest to me, and that way when you move into it, you're going to be turning towards me. So draw your foot in towards your seat. Take your hands around the shin. Now, depending arm to body length ratio, you might need something behind you to bring your fingertips onto. So hopefully you've got something nearby that you can use if you need it. So hands around the shin. We can apply a little light pressure there to the shin as we lift up through the midline of the body. Release the shoulders, soften your forehead, release your jaw. Breathe. And then we can inhale as we lift up. And as you exhale, you're going to turn towards me now. You can hug that knee in towards the body. I like to bring my free hand, as some of you will be familiar with, in across the belly and just encourage that belly flesh around by bringing my hand through and just sort of stroking my belly flesh around into agreement with the posture. And then you bring your hand to the floor or to your lift behind you and you lift and turn, and the turn comes out of the lift. Okay, the turn comes out of the lift. So we're not forcing a turn. It doesn't require leverage. It requires length. It requires space. It requires breath. Now, as you lift and turn, you may find a little movement into this useful, so you can rock a little across your sitting bones if that's useful. And then if you find that you've got a lot of turn and you've moved into it well, then you might bring your arm over and place your arm against the outer thigh, but don't force this. If you're sort of rounding into it like this and trying to get your arm around and you're stuck like that, keep the leg hugged in. Focus more on maintaining this lift in the body rather than trying to get the deepest turn that you can get. So nobody's watching you. You don't have to be trying to do any impressive yoga pose. You're there in the comfort of your own home. So, what would be gained out of trying to force the pose? Absolutely nothing. Just a sense of grasping, a sense of dissatisfaction. But what would be gained of really listening and dropping into it and absorbing yourself in the pose would be, infinitely more beneficial than any grasping, because we would feel integrated. And out of that state comes calmness, contentment, santosha, and ease, sukha. Okay, let's slowly ease off. Extend that leg out in front of you, and maybe you need to give yourself some movement. Sometimes you might need to get into that sort of front groin area, the top of the thigh of what was the bent leg. Perhaps if it felt a little tight from that hip flexion. And then when you're ready, you can bend back your other leg and bring the foot to the floor in front of you. Hold your shin, lift your chest. So I say lift your chest. In some ways it's a convenient, quick instruction. But actually what I really mean is to find lift through the middle of the body, through the center of the body, to find space around the waist, to give yourself here and now. Okay, when you're ready, inhaling, lifting up, and exhaling, keeping that lift as you turn towards the bent leg, hugging the leg in towards you, fingertips to the floor or to your support as you need it, feeling free to move into it, to sort of perhaps sway a little into it. As many of you will know, swaying is one of my favorite things to do in yoga. And then again, if you find you can use that support of the free hand to draw the belly flesh around, if that's useful for you. And if you've got a lot of turn, you are free to move yourself to the outside of the leg. Pause there to breathe there. Okay, and then easing off, returning to the center, extending your legs out in front of you, moving out as you need to. And then from here, we're going to move into Shavasana before we come to our meditation practice. So bring yourself off your lift, come to lay down. You might want to hug your knees into your chest when you lay down and maybe have a little rock from side to side if there is any residue of holding within the lower back. And then laying down as we would always do, arms a little away from the body, feet around about hip width apart, not going too wide with the feet. It closes the lower back. And you can also have the option to have your hands on your belly, one hand on the belly, one hand on the chest. Option to have support underneath the head, to have a blanket over you. And then when you're there, just closing your eyes. So I'm going to switch this light down now, so your screen will go a little darker. It might just be silhouetted, but you will be closing your eyes. So with your eyes closed, your breath settles. You give yourself here and now completely. So Shavasana is wonderful in that we place ourselves in this position where we sort of have maximum support of the body. There's can't really fall out of the pose. We can't be tipped over at all in this posture. We're as low as we're able to go. We're as supported as we possibly can be. We are in our most stable position. So within that stability, there is total ease. There is freedom to let go, to give ourselves. To rest here in the shape of our body and the space that surrounds the body and the support of not only the floor but the earth beneath us. The breath comes and goes. Again, We can feel the breath like a light breeze that we give ourselves to. The simplicity of that and the richness of it when we rest in it fully. Take 3 slower, steadier breaths. Feeling that breath fully reaching into the entire body. The energy of the breath. The love of the breath. And then once you've taken those 3 deeper breaths, you're going to bend your knees slowly and place your feet to the floor. And it might be that here you want to rest into your breath for a few moments. And then when you're ready, you may roll yourselves over to just lay on your right side and pause there. And then rolling yourselves over onto your other side. And again, just taking a pause there. And then in your own time, slowly starting to come out, reaching into the body, maybe giving some movement to the fingers, to the toes, stretching out the limbs. Having a deeper breath. Sometimes a yawn wants to come in, whatever you need. And then when you're ready, bringing yourselves up from your side, and then you're going to bring yourself into your meditation posture. So coming to a comfortable seat, making sure you are supported. So we want our seat to be a little raised, and you can come into your usual meditation posture. So as always, we're looking for that posture that is upright, self-supported upright without too much effort. We're not having to place a lot of effort into the body to get ourselves into this position. And take, any support you need in terms of warmth. So it can be very nice to have a little blanket around the hips for meditation, and then place your hands there on your thighs or in your lap, whatever is comfortable. And then close your eyes. And feel your contact with your seat, feel the contact with the floor, and the lightness in the body as we sit. And then bring your attention into your breath again. The breath as everything. And we're going to pay particular attention to the breath, noticing that cycle of Shrishti, Sthiti, Samhara, creation, maintenance, dissolution. So in other words, we're going to feel the breath as it arises on the inhalation and the point that it arises from. Any natural pause that might be there at the top of the inhalation, and we're going to feel that exhalation as the breath dissolving back into its source. So the source of the breath, where the breath is being initiated from in your own body. Perhaps you may feel as being somewhere around the heart center. This is the energetic source rather than the physiological process of the breath. Feel where the breath arises from and stay with the breath as it rises in the inhalation. As there is a pause or a very slight pause of transition into the dissolving breath. And it dissolves back into the source out of which it arose. The continuous natural cycles. a flicker of awareness that sparks the inhalation and receives the exhalation. That little light of pure awareness. Whilst we are in each cycle of breath, that breath may feel like the most important breath ever, the most consuming breath, yet it still releases and dissolves to make way for the next breath, which becomes our all-important breath. Reflecting the transient nature of life. Whatever we happen to be in at any moment in time often feels like this is it. Yet, whatever it is, it passes, makes way for the next thing. Just like the breath, everything is subject to dissolution. Taking one more breath here. And when you've dissolved that breath, you may bring your hands to your heart. And we're going to close the class as we mostly do by chanting Om 3 times together. So taking a deep inhalation to prepare. Om. Oh. Thank you all very much. Namo Vaha, Namaste.